Are you a radio enthusiast?
A research student?
Or a curious thinker looking for an adventure?
If this sounds like you, welcome to The Summer I Found My Spark, a podcast where we interview Adelphi's brightest minds to learn about their summer research experiences. We'll be asking students how they discovered their topic, reached out to mentors, the setbacks they faced, and the advice that they have for future researchers. My name is Maci.
And I'm Errah. Today's episode is brought to you in collaboration with the Sparks Research Center, where curiosity meets innovation. Each summer, the Sparks Center funds students to take on independent research projects across various disciplines.
Whether you're interested in computer sciences, dance, literature, or public health, there is something for every listener with a curious take on life. So keep your ears sharp, for this podcast might just leave you inspired or searching for your own spark. To find out more, please visit the Sparks Instagram page and website linked in our description.
Today we'll be kicking off our first episode with a very special guest. We're joined by Candice Garwood, a senior in the Livermore Global Scholars Program, majoring in international studies with minors in Spanish and African, Black, and Caribbean studies. Candice is a trailblazing student from Jamaica who's taking Adelphi by storm with her exceptional leadership skills.
You may have seen her posing in promotional banners across campus. This summer, Candice was a Sparks Summer Research Fellow. She worked with Dr. Patricia Lapinais, the director of Adelphi's ABC program, to produce Milk Teeth, which is a collection of vignettes on loss and coming of age.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, Candice. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me. How are you guys?
We're really good.
Yes,
yeah.
We're super excited to have you here.
Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So we're going to dig straight into it. Tell us a little about your research topic and what drew you to it in the first place.
Why did I do it in the first place? So, what I came up with over the summer is a vignette collection entitled Milk Teeth, Collections on Loss and Coming of Age. Honestly, at first, when I saw the opportunity to, do the Spark research, I thought I'm just gonna do some academic research, gonna have some more of that under my belt. But I am a creative writer outside of the context of, school, academics, all of that. And so I thought, why not find a way to kind of fuse my interest in global affairs and development and in creative writing. So I sat down, I thought about it. I thought a lot about it, and then I kind of knew that I wanted this to be under the umbrella of the Center for African, Black, and Caribbean Studies, so that I could be putting out some literature, some writing that represents the region I'm from, the Caribbean, and specifically Jamaica, and find this creative way to comment on some of the social issues there.
That's super fascinating. I love
Thank
that.
you.
I know very well about your creative writing prowess. You're my favorite poet.
Thank you, Maci.
Of course. So can you talk a little bit about how you landed on that specific topic? I know that research ideas can often feel very overwhelming. There's a large umbrella to be working under. They can be too narrow or too broad, but how did you settle on your particular research topic in question?
Okay, so I can give some context on like a similar project that I took on, I think in junior year. So at some point I did an independent study, and that focused on like Jamaica's music industry and the economic development there. Then when I when I was a part of the BZ Global Learning Experience, I did another research project on more development. So economic development, especially in the international sphere, is something I'm very interested in. And when I realized that I wanted to have this creative element, I kind of went back to my roots, so to speak. I thought about some of my favorite books growing up, coming out of the Caribbean, that comment on some of these social disparities and why there are these inequalities in development, even within a specific country. So I started there. I kind of made a list of socioeconomic problems I wanted to touch on. I made a list of books that I was inspired by, that I wanted to model, but also be innovative from. Hope that answers the question.
Definitely,
amazing.
Yeah. I know that interdisciplinary research and taking on any research projects like that can be often intimidating for students because where do you begin? There isn't like a scientific paradigm or framework that you can go off of. So how did you go about taking like a topic from economic development, something you're probably learning in your classrooms, and connecting it with a personal passion that you have for literature? And the second part that I would really like you to answer is, why milk teeth?
Okay. So kind of going back to what I referenced not too long ago, I just had to remind myself that I have this duality. I'm writing for myself in a sense. I'm writing because I really believe in representation in literature. But in terms of audiences, I'm writing for persons who want to read something creative and they want the metaphors and they want all of that. And then I'm writing for the social commentators who will be like, yes, this child is highlighting poverty here. You know what I mean? So it was really a lot of sketching, outlining, working with my mentor, tapping into her field, which is in literature and in the creative writing. And then just thinking about concepts that I work with every single day in my classes, right? And sitting down, picking the smaller details. Like I want a child narrator because child narrators give these unbiased perspectives. They just tell you what they're seeing. They don't skew the information. So it was like really sitting down, doing some reading, going back to the basics of literature, creative writing, going back to my own class content that I'm passionate about, and just taking it from there, honestly. And milk teeth. Okay, I chose that name because milk teeth are essentially your baby teeth, right? And throughout this vignette collection, we are following this child narrator as she moves from around 6 years old, kind of all the way to being close to wrapping up high school. And so there is some quick progression, and that was interesting. But the concept of milk teeth is about things that are temporary but necessary in your childhood. It's how you have this sense of childhood innocence, right? The milk teeth, the baby teeth. How you lose them, how that can be, not the most amazing thing. You're like, what's going on? I took care of my teeth. But they have to go. And it's a part of growing up. It's a part of learning. It's just a part of life. So I wanted to play on that a bit with the title.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that so much. You discussed a little bit about the different general elements that all came together to fuel this project for you. I think a lot of people look at research and they can think of it as like a very particular and linear pathway, right? It's like you have to focus on specific methodology and specific like research elements, results, hypothesis, stuff like that. But it's much more complicated, and as you've expressed here, it can be multidisciplinary as well, which builds this like beautiful and sometimes creative collaborative approach. There's a lot of revisioning and thinking and like learning from your mistakes when things don't go as maybe you planned.
For sure.
Exactly, and it's those moments when it feels like everything that could possibly go wrong, usually tends to.
Oh, yes.
Was there any point during your research where you doubted yourself, where you thought, can I even pull this off? What is milk teeth? And you felt like you were being thrown off that apex. How did you push through that?
The answer is yes. And Professor Lespinasse was like the most direct witness to this in a sense, because there were so many times where I sat down and I started questioning myself as a creative writer. So usually I write poetry. I've written a few short stories, and going from poems to these vignettes, which are a very specific structure, which, by the way, I must say, I was inspired by The House on Mango Street. I don't want to just claim this as if it came out of nowhere. I was inspired by that book. But anyway, going from one genre, right, into this vignettes, because I was so passionate about it. And also keeping in mind this is a research project. I do have like this word limit and this framework. It was a lot. And sometimes I would honestly sit down. I would be staring at the revisions I had to make, I'd be staring at like a blank page to start a submission that I had coming up. And I was like, am I even a writer? What is going on here? I should have just done the academic project. But I think those moments were very necessary because sometimes they're what push you to try. Because then when you try and you have something on the page, it's like, I was at nothing a few hours ago. You know what I mean? So
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that you described some imposter syndrome there of being like, am I even a writer?
Yes.
Does this identity even like work with me when I'm not producing the specific output, especially when you're changing genres, which is a huge leap, obviously. I think that as people do research like this, especially creative research that's fueled by a person's specific passion, you discover a lot about yourself along the way. It's not just you're learning about your research topic and you're producing a certain product, but learning a lot about yourself. Do you think that as being an emerging adult in your 20s, that this project taught you anything about your own maturing and growing up and that process?
Oh yeah, for sure. One of the things with me has been that I see myself as a pluralistic person in terms of my interests, as you can see from this project. And this project really reinforced the importance of making the time for things that are important to you. Because one of the things I talked about with my mentor a lot is like, Professor Lespinas, I am torn. I want to write. I know that this is a part of my future. I know I want to contribute to Caribbean literature, right? And so outside of the context of this project, I'm just wondering, how do I sustain this whole writing thing? Because this is great. Fellowship is great. Love it. But what next, you know? And there were times where she would say, listen, we're going to try these time blocks. You're going to try out this time block of 4 hours. You're dedicating these 4 hours to your writing. She said, for instance, you get up at 6, you make some tea, walk around the house, you stretch, and you sit down, and this is your time block. And we tried different time blocks. And I think that's something that is so applicable just to life overall as a young adult, I'd say, because there's so much going on all the time. There's school, there's work, there's these interests that you have, there's being a human being and maintaining your social connections. And you sometimes have to get to the point where you have these non-negotiable blocks so that you can feel like this holistic version of yourself, you know?
I really like what you said about making time non-negotiable and sort of, you know, making it just something that you can manipulate and mold on your own. And I really appreciate that Professor Lespinas also allowed you, she listened to your concerns and then she offered some advice and techniques to guide you through that. And I think, especially students at Adelphi, the two things I would like to think they mostly struggle with is time management and just reaching out to professors. I know so many students in their senior years who are just afraid to talk to professors or like, no, they look intimidating. But, yeah, professors can be some of the best people you meet at universities because of how they help you out. So would you say for someone who is a poet, a creative writer, just a literary person, is there anything that you would go back and do differently? Because writer's block and structure isn't always the easiest thing to assimilate in your sort of writing behavior.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, the great thing is, you know, I got it done. And even afterwards, I revised a bit and was proud of myself, pat myself on the back. Had a lot to say, but I think in retrospect, I would just really and truly stop being so hard on myself. I don't think it's something that disappears, especially when you're especially when you're doing something you care about. But it's like, listen, take a page, write the paragraphs disjointed, put something on the page. It's okay. It's not all going to come together at once. That's why you have these submissions. That's why you're going like with a set of vignettes, then another set, then another set. Nobody's pressuring you except yourself, you know? So care and try and be passionate. This is me speaking to myself now. Care and try and be passionate, but stop stop metaphorically sending your blood pressure up. It's going to be okay.
Even physically, like literally as well.
I hope not, but you know.
That's great advice. I think that it's so easy, especially as people who are as multifaceted as you are, and you're such a high achiever, and you know, obviously all your accomplishments speak for themselves. But even just as a person, like obviously we're having you here because we love you. We're so excited. But
I love you guys too. Thank you.
of course. But I do think that it is a very important reminder to say, okay, take a second, fill your own bucket,
Yes.
let yourself do the things that allow you to be that creative and productive person where you can put out something that you're proud of, and you go back in your editing process and all that, and you can say, hey, like I'm proud of the work that I did here, because you know you've put in the effort to prioritize those elements that are important to you. So we do have a lot of curious students who are considering taking on their own research with the Spark Center. What wisdom would you like to impart on them?
Wisdom, such a strong word, but let me try. I would say, kind of echoing what you guys mentioned before, it's important to have an idea, right? It's important to have something you're passionate about, something to present to the professor you're interested in working with, or just to the center. But you can't really sit down and think about all the ways this could end up. Oh, what if this professor says no? What if they don't like it? Give it a try. That's like my main bit of advice to anybody that's considering doing research or just working on a project that they love. Give it a try. I think it hurts a bit more emotionally to have something in mind and to never ever act on it. And then at some point in the future, you're like, whoa, I don't know what that could have become. I feel like that's more painful than you trying. And let's say, you know, I hope this is not the case, but let's say it doesn't work out. At least you would have tried. And at least now, if you try again or try in a different way, you know some things to edit. So try. That's literally my one word advice.
And that's a beautiful philosophy to live by. It reminds me of Dory from Finding Nemo.
Yes.
Because, you know, in this day and age where we have an overabundance of information, everyone has an idea. We don't have a lack of ideas. We just have a lack of mobilizing them and doing something about them. And what makes all the Sparks Fellowship students, you know, a bit more different is that you guys took that initiative, you guys took that step to materialize that idea. So what were some of the setbacks or challenges you faced when you were applying for that fellowship? And, you know, like what did that application process look like for you?
Okay. So when I applied, or specifically when I was making sure that my mentor would be on board and would like to go through this process with me, I knew exactly what I wanted. And so having her feedback, like, okay, let's narrow this down. Let's think critically about what elements you're taking from these works that you're influenced by, what you want your output to be, what your goal is with this. Just narrowing down the details, that can be a lot. Because like you said, we have so many ideas, and I think we usually have the bigger picture in mind. But it's like those little details to get you from point A to point B. I think it was more than anything like an internal or a mental setback. It was really just getting past this, you know, having to be more specific and digging a bit deeper so that this can be a feasible project.
Okay, yes. So thank you so much. We know that research can feel very intimidating, so hearing about the highs and lows of your process made it feel much more achievable and relatable for, I think, us and I'm sure all of the people who are listening as well.
I agree. And you can improve it. You don't need sort of prior research experience or a fully fleshed out idea to undertake a project. All it takes is, you know, a seed of curiosity and a supportive mentor to guide you through it. Do you have any last words for us?
Yes, on this topic, I would really just encourage anybody who is interested in research or their own project that it's okay to be multidimensional and to, like I said, give it a try. and to really work on creating what you would want to see. What's something that's just not out there that you're curious about, interested in? And like you mentioned, Errah, you don't always have to get things perfect at first or at all. You just do your best, because now you're creating something that just wasn't there, and that is really cool, and that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So just say, yeah, keep the goal in mind, be a bit flexible with it, and just take care of yourself in the process. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely. I think that wisdom is definitely the right word when we're hearing this advice. I appreciate this so much. We're so grateful for your time with us today, sharing your insights and your story of dedication and perseverance with our listeners. If you listeners have any questions regarding Candice's project or would like to collaborate with her, you can contact her via email, which will be included in the episode description.
And thank you to the Sparks Research Center for sponsoring this episode and continuing to support student innovation across campus. If you want to learn more about how to get involved with Sparks or apply for next summer's program, check out their page on the university website. We'll also link it in the episode description.
And that wraps up today's episode of PAWS Radio. Until next time, stay tuned and stay curious. We'll catch you in our next episode of The Summer I Found My Spark.